They were like, "Oh no, it's emergent." I literally remember I was sitting on the thing and they were wheeling me down. I was like, I feel like I'm on Grey's Anatomy right now.
Welcome to Hey Awesome Girl with Tivi Jones. Every week, we interview amazing boss babes in tech, medicine, law, entrepreneurship, entertainment, parenting, and more. About their lives, their goals, their why, in order to discover how every day they're working to add more pleasure, ease, and abundance in their orbit. Ooh, hold up. We gotta unpack that. This show is part business advice, part life coaching, part real talk with girlfriends. See how she be coaching me? If you're looking for a show that's real and relatable, but also inspiring at the same time, this is the one for you. I am Tivi Jones, your host. I am founder and CEO of Hey Awesome Girl, a creative agency. I'm dog mom to Olivia, who is the cutest little dog on the planet. And I am also someone who was born 3 months premature. In this episode, you'll meet Marshella Pounds, who is a human resources professional and mom to a micro-preemie. In this episode, we talk about all the things, including navigating work-life balance during a pandemic, the unpredictable nature of parenting, how to give up control and live in the moment, self-care, and more. It is a really deep episode. Definitely try to hold back my thug tears during it, but I hope you will enjoy it. Hi, Mars! Welcome to the show!
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
I am so happy to have you. Obviously, I've known you for a long time.
A real long time.
Yeah, a real long time. But for the folks who aren't familiar with you, please introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I am Marshella Pounds. And there's probably a lot I could say about myself, but I'm going to keep it short and just say here's a couple of key things about me. I am a true lover of Christ. I always have been. That's how I was raised. My faith has gotten me through so much in my life. So that's a very big part of who I am. I love wine. Jesus turned the water into wine. I love wine. Okay, let me just tell you.
I'll stop
me
you when you're lying.
Me and wine, and you know this, Tivi. I love wine. Like that's like my thing, and like we'll get into that a little bit more, but just know
Yeah.
that it's important. Um, aside from that, the other thing I would say about myself is, I am 100% always, me. The same me today that you get will be the same person you get tomorrow, the day after, and the day after that. I don't know
And
who
the
else
day
to
after.
be. That's it. That's it. And then, if we want to talk about titles, I'm a wife, a mom. I work for a large healthcare company doing leadership and development. Um, and I've been in talent acquisition. That's kind of where a lot of my background is in talent acquisition for university recruiting. So that's me.
That is definitely you, and that's why I love you. And I'm sure by the time we finish this episode, the audience will love you too. I'm going to start with, they will. Just wait. I'm going to start on the business side first because I feel like there's so much that I want to talk to you about, from being a wife to being a mother. But let's start with, I don't want to say it's boring. I don't know why I almost said it was boring, because it's not. Your work is not.
It's work. Work is work, right?
It is work. Work be working.
Do.
Talk to me. Talk to me about what it's like to work in recruiting, in corporate recruiting, because you've been in corporate recruiting for a while, but specifically during the pandemic. Like, what has that looked like for you?
Oh my gosh. Recruiting in general, I think. So let me say, university recruiting is very different than, experienced hire recruiting. University recruiting, that's where you're going to a lot of different college campuses and you're trying to get the best of the best talent, whether that's at an undergrad level or could be graduate level for me. So I was actually in charge of like university relations. So my role wasn't
Mm.
to be an actual recruiter. It was more about engaging candidates and having them be interested in our company and see our company as, a top place that they would want to be. So in, pre-COVID life, pre-COVID life, that was very fast paced, very busy. I was always on the road traveling. I would be, our schools that I managed were mostly in the Northeast. So I was always like, back and forth to North Carolina, which I'm from North Carolina, so that was great. I live in Tampa now for work, but yeah, definitely was still North Carolina, New Jersey, Michigan,
Oof.
yeah, a lot of different places, New York, and it's very cyclical. I will say that. So like it would
Mm.
have ebbs and flows. So like I'd be traveling a lot from the end of August to about November. And then it would be like, okay, nothing. You're home. You're working on things and strategizing for the next part of the season. And then it kind of ramps back
Mm.
up in spring. And then, again, you'll get another a little bit of a lull after spring is over, but then you're prepping for the next season. So it's
Right.
always like this up and down type of thing. Well, when COVID hit, it completely turned that all upside down, because again, we're hosting these events that have anywhere from 50 to like 150, 200 candidates,
Wow.
depending on what school we're at. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
even more if you're thinking about like a career fair at an undergrad school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so needless to say, I actually remember my last trip of um of 2020 was it was like at the end of February, and it actually was a professional development trip for myself. I had gone to take a course that our company delivers at headquarters. And then I remember thinking, because I had heard, we were hearing the things about COVID, but it was
Right.
like still hadn't really hit us yet. And I remember being in the room in the class with, colleagues and stuff who, it was across the company, so cross functional. And I remember thinking, should we be worried about COVID?
Mm-hmm.
But like at that time, like we just didn't, no one had a sense for what it was going to be. And we didn't really have
Right.
any, I don't know if we had the first case even yet in the US at that point. I don't think we had. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but so I came back and I was supposed to have my next trip was supposed to be a recruiting activity trip. And I was like, I don't think I feel comfortable going. And this was before, it was like right in that cusp of like people were trying to figure out how to start navigating or what precautions we should probably be
Right.
taking. At this point,
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember how many cases it was in the US at that point, but it was right before the shutdown. And I just told my boss, I was like, whether our company says we should go or not, I'm not going. I was like,
Yeah.
just I was like, I'm
I know
sorry.
that's right. Boundaries.
Yeah, yes, that's another thing about me. I am a big believer of boundaries, and you have to stick to your boundaries
Is.
and hold people accountable for your boundaries. Like you can't anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I could go down a rabbit hole on that one.
Woo. Let
But
me make a note because we're gonna talk about that.
yeah, it's very important. But yes, I went to my boss and I was like, I do not feel comfortable. I have a small child who at the time was, I guess he was two. Was he two? I think Emerson was two. Yeah. And, he had been born at 26 weeks in 2017 and he's immunocompromised. And I was just like, no. So, and
Right.
it was funny because maybe, I don't know, a few days after I said that, our company was like, nobody can travel anywhere. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
I'm blessed to work for a company that gets it. We, whenever I think it was that second week of March, we were told we would be working remotely. And I think they initially did say it was going to be 2 weeks. And somewhere in the middle of that 2 weeks, it was
Ha.
like, oh no,
I'm
you're
sorry.
you're staying home. It's like you stay at home, girl. Okay. So yeah,
Whew. One
yeah,
could dream 2 weeks, 2 years,
right, right. Oh my
or
God,
more. Who knows?
exactly. So
Ooh,
yeah,
well,
so it definitely turned, everything in terms of university recruiting upside down. I think it also
mhm,
though it did give us the opportunity to see that number one, we could still do this from our homes.
mhm, mhm.
We went to a number of events that were conferences and school events that we just had virtually. Now we did
Right.
have to think about the best way to do that and how do you, create a virtual strategy for event engagement and recruiting.
Mhm,
So that gave, it helped grow, I feel like a lot of us in terms of like
mhm,
professional development, because it gave us that opportunity. And then there's one particular event that I am super proud of that we typically hold in person. It's kind of a woo event, if you will. It's where we invite all of our offer candidates, and in the past, it typically was um, limited to graduate level. And that's mostly
mm,
because of, it takes a lot of resources to put this event on. Well, we were able to shift that into a virtual event that I led. It was a 4-hour event, and I have no idea how I got through it, but I got through it because 4
wow.
hours of being on video and being
Being
on and
on.
yes, and I do mean on, like
Yeah.
not you have to be, it's one of those situations where you have to give the energy. You're not getting the energy from the
Mhm,
crowd because you can't see them.
mhm.
So,
Right.
you have to come into it like ready to go and you have to
Ready.
keep it at 100 the entire time. I
Yeah.
was so exhausted after that event. Like it was crazy. I took the
That's
rest
a
of the day.
lot.
Yeah, it was a lot, but it was a very good event. We got so much positive feedback from it. And,
Mhm.
we got a lot of hires out of that. So, that's something that I'm really proud of that, and we worked with a company across the pond, as we like to say, on it, which was really cool. So that was another dynamic. You're getting to work with people that maybe you wouldn't be able to work with
Have
otherwise. So,
mhm,
yeah.
mhm. Wow. So it sounds like the transition was successful. Um, I know that a lot has happened in your career over the past 2 years, but talk to me about like, okay, so pandemic happened, you had a 2-year-old at home. Now you have a 4-year-old at home and you have a husband. What is it like balance like you're working from home, you're homing from home? Like what is it like balancing all those needs in one space?
It's interesting. That's a good question. I think it's different at different times.
Mm,
So, in the beginning of the pandemic, I think it was a little bit of a novelty to it because we had never kind of done that, right? I think for our family, we transitioned well into it because we lived the NICU life. And I hate to say it, but honestly, I think our experience of Emerson being in the NICU for as long as he was, and like we experienced times where he had to be in isolation because he had some sort of virus. It was very similar to,
mm,
when we first got into the pandemic and we were like, okay, everybody's going to stay at home and quarantine and all of that. So, it wasn't so bad in the beginning, but I think in terms of the balance, it got really tough to balance work and Emerson and even the wife part, right? I think that one thing that helped us is, we were privileged that Emerson, because of his medical issues, he goes to a very special daycare that, it's sort of, I call it a medical daycare, but they call it PPEC, and so it's an acronym, and I am gonna forget what the acronym stands for, but just think of it as a medical daycare. So this is a daycare
yeah.
where there are nurses on staff, like they're registered nurses,
Mhm,
and so they have a different protocol that they go by, and they're
mm,
considered a medical facility rather than a daycare. So they
okay.
never closed during the pandemic,
Mm,
which was very helpful to us. So that gave us some balance, right? We did have him stay home. I think there was a period in the beginning where he stayed home, but then when he was able to go back, we let him go prayerfully because I was concerned. But I also
mhm,
knew the new precautions they were taking and everything. And so I felt as good as you can feel in a situation like that about,
right.
sending him in. And so that helped, I think, give us a little bit of balance, right? Because he was being able to go and at least, get
Mhm.
that stimulation, get that social interaction and all of that from other kids and stuff. And then Jeff never stopped working in person because he works for a large healthcare company who actually does like testing and stuff. So,
Mhm.
he was, oh my gosh, if you ask him, he's an essential worker. He truly is though. He is. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna take it away from him, okay? But
Give that man his title. Don't take that away from my boy Jeff.
Imma give him his flowers. Yes, he is, because without them, we would not, have all the
That's
testing we
true.
need. Yeah, so yeah, but he did, there were days where he was, like, working from home some. He was kind of, doing a little bit of both, which he had not been doing. So it was like he would go
Mhm.
in, certain days of the week. But Jeff and I have been together for so long that, when I really think about it, it was fine. Like, we didn't have, any issues of, like, "I'm sick of seeing your face" type of situation. Like, we were okay. Because at the end of the day, also, like, he'd go to one room, I'll go to another room, and, like,
Mhm.
we're doing our own things and stuff like that, and then we'll come together and watch, a few shows or whatever it is. So, I
Mhm.
think we found our stride, but it was just a little weird at first, and, like, I was trying to cook everything from home, and, like, I was like, "We're not going to any restaurants, and we're not," and then I was like, can we download this DoorDash? Because yeah, I need
I'm ready to take a risk and
I
not
need
have to do
more
these
balance
dishes.
here. I can't be doing all this all the time. Like, Imma need, so yeah, so that's what I mean by, like, we kind of found our
Mhm.
balances that we needed along the way. And now I'm actually back to working from home again. So my office opened back up in July of 2021. Yes, I think it was
Mhm.
July. And then by October, we were all, told to be in the office 2 to 3, well, no, 3 days a week, I believe it was.
Mm.
And so even that was a transition of like going, because like we had gotten into this really nice
Yeah.
routine of like, I work from home, I'm
Mhm.
able to like
I wear
do
these sweatpants.
exactly. I'm wearing the sweatpants. Yes,
My
yes, yes,
commute
yes,
is 30 seconds.
exactly. On my break, I'm throwing some clothes in the laundry, okay?
Okay.
Or on my break, I'm seasoning some meat for later. So yeah, like I started or I'm working out on my lunch, okay? Because I can take
Mhm.
a shower in
Mhm.
my shower,
Real quick. Mhm.
right? So like all these life things, it actually like turned out to be better. Like at least I felt like I was getting healthier, I was happier, like all these things.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
when I had to go back to the office, it was just like it was another transition, life.
Yeah.
What I've learned in my, I can say it, 35 years of living because I'm 35.
Yes.
Yes, I'm
So
35.
old.
I'm happily 35.
I'm joking.
I do have a birthday coming up though, so
Yeah, you do. You do. You
I do.
still look young and spry to me.
I'm a
Just
spry
as
girl.
young as the day I first met you.
Thank you. But yeah, what I've learned over the years is just life is about transitions. It
Mm,
really is, and you have to embrace that.
mm.
And that's something that I've had to learn, like, really deeply learn over the past 5 years, I would say.
Okay, okay, so let's dig into that because
Okay.
I know you. I've known you almost half my life. Almost. We coming up. We coming up on it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
um. So I know Emerson's story.
Mhm.
Emerson's Marshella's son, as she mentioned earlier. But for our audience, do you mind sharing Emerson's journey with us?
No, not at all. Yeah. So Emerson was born on August 7th of 2017. So he was actually 26 weeks at the gestational age of 26 weeks when he was born. And so what happened actually for me was I was admitted to the hospital after a work trip. And this was at the end of July of 2017. I was admitted to the hospital. They told me I would not leave the hospital without a baby. And I said, "So, what do you mean? Like, am I having the baby today or am I having the baby tomorrow?" And they were like, "Well, we don't know." They were like, "We just need you to be in the hospital on bed rest. We need to watch him and, we'll make a determination based on if he is in distress or not." And this was because so Emerson was what is known as interuterine growth restricted or IUGR. Yeah. Um, and so that's for him, he was growing at a smaller rate than maybe he should have been. And that can be a sign of a number of different things that will impact, the child in the future. But the biggest thing was, I had been told that because he was interuterine growth restricted, that he could be stillborn if he wasn't, you know, if he wasn't taken out of my belly in time, but that if he was taken out too early, that he could also not make it. And so the doctors really did not know. And they told me, I felt like I had really, really good doctors. They were very honest with me, and that's what I appreciated. But they had a real conversation. I will never forget. So I had been in the hospital on bed rest for a week, and I was over it. I was like, I just want to know what it's going to be. And every day that I had been in the hospital, they were doing sonograms to see, what was going on with him, and they were, doing my blood work and all of that.
Mhm.
Because I also had been told that I was like mildly preeclamptic. My blood pressure was fine, but there were just other signs of it that they were
Mm.
like, it looks like you might have it a little bit. So, yeah. So a week after, went in for the sonogram. This was the day I will never forget. The doctor was like, she said, "I am not trying to be negative." She was like, "But I just really want you to understand the situation." She said, "We just won't know until we get him out." And I said,
Mm.
"Okay." I said, "All right." And Jeff and I went back to my room and I said to him, I was like, "I just want this to be over." I was like, "I just want to know one way or the other what we're dealing with." I was like, "I'm tired of being in limbo. I just want it to be over. Watch what you say because God will give you what you ask for." Okay.
Okay.
2 hours after I said that, my OB came in the room and she said, "Well, we're going to deliver you." I was like, "What, right now?" She's like, "Yeah, we're going to do emergency C-section." She said that my blood work had shown my liver enzymes were increasing, which I believe that's a sign of preeclampsia. And so they were worried about me being okay.
Mhm.
And so they were
Mhm.
like, "He's got to go." So literally it was a scramble because I had been I had been living in the hospital, like to the point where my
Yeah.
friends had brought posters. Like I had like made it my own because you have to. And
Yeah.
that's a key piece of advice for anybody out there who ever has to like have an extended stay, whether it's pregnancy related or not, but in the hospital. Bring all the positive vibes that you can. Like make it
Mhm.
your own space. Don't be up in there, have it looking, dry, drab, and stale and like a
Mhm.
hospital room because it just doesn't put you in a good mindset. Like you need
It's
to do
not good for
things.
your energy.
Yeah, you got to do things
Mhm.
that will give you positive energy. Um, and so, yeah, so I say that to say though, my husband had to get all that stuff out because I was in a labor and delivery room and they were like, "She ain't coming back to this room." So we got to move her stuff. So he
Jeff
had
was
to,
a G.
Jeff was a G for real. And I remember I called my friend Adrian and because at the time we worked at the same place and she's at
Mhm.
work at the office. And, and I was like, "Adrian, I'm about to have the baby. I need you to come up here and help Jeff." Like as if she was going to get there in the next 5 minutes. Like, come on.
Shout out to Adrian, though.
Shout out to Adrian. She did come, but he had already gotten all the stuff
All
out.
right.
But yeah, they literally like whisked me down and like they were like, "Oh no, it's emergent." I literally remember I was sitting on the thing and they were wheeling me down. I was like, "I feel like I'm on Grey's Anatomy right now." And they were laughing. I had them laughing. I had them laughing up in there.
I you did. Just silly self.
girl. I was like, this this must be how it is on the
I
TV.
will say this is one thing about you, Mars. You always bring such good energy. You're always like not always, because there have been some really tough times that we have all experienced together, but your spirit is just 9 times out of 10. You bringing the light, okay? You bringing the light, you bringing the humor.
I
And
try.
I
I
know
try.
that has served you in your life.
It definitely has, and that's I think part of how I got through this whole journey, and we're still on the journey. But so Emerson came into the world, and he was crying. So then we were crying because we didn't expect to hear him crying. Like we didn't know what to expect. So like hearing him cry, it was just a we I think Jeff and I both took a breath and we cried and and I just felt the like he's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
I just immediately felt he's gonna be okay. And so then they, had to whisk him off and everything. And I didn't see Adrian saw Emerson before I did because she was there.
Yeah.
But I was in recovery and all of that. So I didn't get to see him right away. I didn't get to hold him. I didn't hold Emerson until I think about 3 months. Look, I have the picture of his little head, and his little hand was just like
Yeah.
reaching up, and he was just so little. He was 1 pound and 1.5 ounces when he was born. And then anybody who's had babies, they lose weight. And if you don't know this, babies lose weight in the first like couple days. And so he really didn't have a lot of weight to lose. So it was just scary, honestly. It was scary. I, didn't know, even though I had that feeling of he's going to be okay, I just knew it was a long road ahead.
Yeah.
And he, had all the tubes, he was in the incubator, all like, the lights to help prevent jaundice and all of the things. And there's so many things they don't tell you. And I feel like one of the things for me that I, to this day, like, I just feel a way about is that, I always thought going into pregnancy, I always was like, if I can make it through the first trimester, I'm good. I
Yeah.
was like holding on to that, like,
Mm.
that
Hmm.
was I don't know, that was my
Like it's
comfort.
all clear from
Yes.
here. Hmm.
Yes. I was like, if we make it there, then we good, good. No. And I found that out, just
Yeah.
I was on I was on a work trip, right? And a doctor, I had just gotten into my second trimester, and the doctor called me and was like, we see some of your numbers in your blood work, we need to run it again just to check because it
Mm.
was like it was my alpha fetoprotein level, and they were like, it's right on the cusp, of them having some concern. And so they wanted me to come
Okay.
back in to do the blood test again, and I did, and then they sent me to a specialist, and that's when we found out like
Mm.
he was, growth restricted and stuff. And I was like,
Hmm.
growth restricted? What? And so what that really means is like something was going on with, the placenta that he wasn't always getting the nutrients he needed to grow at the rate he
Mm.
should have been
Hmm.
growing.
Hmm.
And, in my case, what they found later was at some points, there was even a regression of like the nutrients going away from him. Yeah.
Wow.
So like, and I don't think we knew that until I was like closer to being delivered. But so yeah, it was really scary. But I was just like, that's the one thing that I felt really like I was as we say sometime at work, I was hanging my hat on that, like that we were gonna
Yeah.
be, and it just I learned that it's very unpredictable.
Yeah.
Pregnancy is very unpredictable. Bringing kids into the world is very unpredictable. Don't ever let
Yeah.
anybody tell you anything different. It's not something you can
Mm.
control. It's
Right.
not. And for me, I have been also a person who likes control. So this was also a lesson
Yeah.
in, you know, just relinquishing control,
Mm.
and because I didn't have the control anyway, but just, like,
Mhm.
going with where the situation has taken us. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, so that's how he made it into the world, and he spent 191 days in the NICU.
Mm.
Um, he came out of the NICU with a tracheostomy, which is a breathing tube that is surgically inserted into his neck. He had that and a G tube, a gastronomy tube, so a feeding tube in his stomach. And he also was on a ventilator when he came home. So,
Yeah.
needless to say, we had to become, pretty medical, and we are not medical people. So, like, we had to learn how to change his trach, how to, clean it, how to clean his trach ties because there
Mhm.
it's it stays on in place with a tie. We had to learn how to change his G2. We had to learn how to manage if something happened and it just fell out, or if he pulled it out, because kids do
Right.
that. They pull
Right.
out, they do tubes and they pull out their trachs. Okay.
Mm.
So yeah, we had to learn how to
Shish.
do all that stuff. Yeah, it's crazy, crazy. But yeah, that's what happened.
There's some things in that story that I didn't even know.
Really?
And I was, yeah, just a couple of the smaller details, but yeah, because obviously I remember the bed rest. I remember the false alarms, like she's about to go give the baby. No, they want to wait a little bit more. And then that day, and I remember texting Jeff to just check on y'all. And I remember what you said about him crying. It's it's so interesting because that's literally what Jeff texted me. He's like, he's crying, we're crying.
I
Like
didn't know
that
that.
was it. That's literally what he texted me. And I remember texting our friend group, everything's fine. They're all crying. So that's good news. So it's like, the baby crying? Good.
I did not
uh,
know that.
Yeah. And I do want to talk about your blog, because as you said, you all had to become medical professionals. There are times you say words and I'm just like over here trying to like Google it. Like what does that mean? But before we get to you documenting your journey, because I feel like maybe this next question relates to the documentation a bit. I want to talk about grief a little bit. I think sometimes people assume you only feel grief when someone you care about dies. But as I think, as both of us know, grief happens anytime your relationship with something you care about changes.
Yes.
And those things you care about can be goals, can be plans, can be dreams, can be expectations. So,
Yes.
like right now, you have a happy and healthy 4 year old, which is a success.
Hmm.
But as part of that process to get him there, how has grief shown up for you?
Oh, it's been there. Um, and honestly, it's been there all along. It's just I was not acknowledging it, which is not
Mm.
good. So I don't recommend anybody do that. But why I say it that way is because and I think probably some of like being because this happened during the pandemic where I started coming to some like realizations and stuff,
Mm.
and I started going through a tough time in, I think it was about June of 2020. So like I said, it's been a journey. We've gotten to the
Mm.
point where Emerson does not have the trach anymore. Well, I guess the first step was he's not on the ventilator anymore, but then he
Right.
got his trach out in 2020. And now he just has the G tube, and so we're working on like getting him to the point where he's eating and drinking enough by mouth that he can get that out. And so I had this frustrating day, and I don't know, to this day, I don't know like what triggered it, but it was all about his feeding. And Jeff and I had kind of gotten
Mm.
into a little back and forth about it. I won't say argument because we neither one of us was wrong about what we were saying. We just had different approaches in mind, and thoughts about how to move forward in it or whatever. And so that was one time where I was like, Okay, I remember I said to Jeff, I was like, "I just wanna know, like, when does this end? Like, when do we stop
Mm,
being, you know, preemie parents? Like, when does that
mm,
like, when are we just parents
right.
of, a kid who's thriving and da 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 da?" And I think I
Yeah.
started to realize, like, we're never gonna not be preemie parents. That's always
Mhm,
gonna be, who we are because it's always gonna be him, and
mhm,
things will impact him differently because of his history of being a micro preemie. And so that I had that, and then maybe like a month later, I had a total breakdown, a total
mm,
breakdown. And it was something that when I think about it in real life, it seems so simple for the breakdown that I had. It was Emerson. He was getting these rashes and stuff, and we had started taking him to a dermatologist. He had been going for
mm,
like, I think maybe like a month or something, maybe a month and a half. I can't even remember now. But he had been going, and this other one, came up, and like his hair was falling out. And we had an appointment coming up, but because a new rash had come up, I wanted to get him in sooner. So I called the doctor and I'd like rescheduled him. Well, the day rolled around and they called me and they were like, if he comes in today, he's going to see a nurse practitioner, and the nurse practitioner really wants him to see a doctor. And I was like, but my baby's hair is falling out. I was like, we need to fit, like, which I
mhm.
didn't say that to the lady, but internally that's how I was feeling. And
Yeah.
you know, I was calm on the phone with her, and, I allowed her, I was like, okay, when can we do it? We rescheduled it on the phone. But when I got off the phone, I bawled in tears, like just busted out in tears. And I called Jeff,
Oh,
and Jeff is like, "Are you okay?" I mean, I was like uncontrollably, like I was speaking, but he could not understand what I was saying. He was like, "Do I need to come
wow.
home?" Like, what, like, he's like, "What is going on?" And I, finally got to the point where I could tell him and express to him, but I realized that it was about so much more than that.
Mm,
And I
mhm,
think it was my grief coming up of just all, and
mhm.
it had been kind of brewing. And the
Right.
reason it had been brewing was because I never addressed it. Because what I didn't realize until so shortly after that, I started going to therapy.
Mhm.
I recommend therapy for everybody,
For
whether you need it,
everyone.
for
Yes.
everybody. You get therapy. You get therapy.
You
You
get therapy. You get that. Everybody.
everybody. Everybody. It's so helpful to be able to like have that professional and third party perspective, because
Mhm,
that is where I actually realized that number one, it was trauma that I hadn't dealt with, but
mm,
also I didn't allow myself to grieve. Like I never
mm,
grieved the fact that my mommyhood journey was nothing like what I thought it was going to be. I just got
mhm.
tossed into something that I had to kinda navigate, and I didn't know I had no, like, plan or,
No
like,
playbook, no
no
any like
playbook, nothing. Like, I
yeah,
had no one in my life who was close to me had experienced that, so I
right.
didn't have anybody to, like, say, "This is happening," and they actually, like, really, really understand because they
Understand.
went through it, and be able to
Mhm,
be like, "Well, this is," until I had Emerson did I have that, right? So, like,
mm,
once news got out about Emerson, then people started coming out the woodworks like, "I know such and such," or "This person had
mhm.
and that's when I also realized that we don't talk about the things we go through enough, because
Ooh,
I didn't
yes.
know that there were people around me who, had the experience. But yeah, so I realized that I had basically, and I think this is maybe it's not, I don't know about other cultures, but it's definitely a Black woman culture thing to like be the strong one. You
Ooh,
know, it's like, okay, what we got to do? We gonna do it.
right. We
We
got
gonna
work to
do it.
do. We
We
got
gonna
family
get
to take
through it.
care of.
We ain't got time to be crying. We ain't got time to be wallowing in our sorrows and all of this stuff. You
Okay.
can feel how you feel, and that's fine. But at the end of the day,
Ooh,
we got to get it done. And not only that, but like that as a mom is like to the nth
mhm,
degree, like whatever power you
mhm.
want it to be. Like it
Yep.
just is, you feel like,
Sacrifice.
yes. And but it's not because like you don't want to either, is the thing,
Right.
because that's your baby. And when you see your 1 pound, 1.5 ounce baby there, and the only thing you can do to feel like their mother is number one, to pump breast milk for them. So that's what I did.
Mhm.
And then the other thing was to be at the hospital, to be talking to the doctors, to be
Right.
understanding what they're saying so that you can advocate
Mm.
for your child. That
Right.
is what my focus was on. That's all my
Mhm.
focus was on. I couldn't do anything else. And so I didn't give myself the time to sit back and think about it. But as I
Mhm.
reflect on it, I also feel like I don't know when I would have done that. I was just too busy trying to
You
figure
were
it
in
out.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so it wasn't until, like I said, 2020, so from 2017 to 2020, that I finally realized, like, "Oh, you didn't deal with this. You
Mhm.
didn't allow yourself to grieve the fact
Right.
that you didn't have, I didn't have maternity photos. I didn't have a baby shower.
Mhm.
I didn't have the him, I didn't have the me seeing
Yeah.
him, you know, how they
Right.
hold up the baby once they're
You didn't
born.
get to hold him until he was 3 months. He didn't come
No.
home until 6 months later.
Yeah. Yeah, like, all of those things look so different for me, and don't get me wrong, I found the joy in that, right? Like, we
Mhm.
have gorgeous pictures of the day he came home, and he came home on Valentine's Day. So Valentine's Day is
Yeah.
always gonna be a special day now, like, if it
Yeah.
never was before, it definitely is now. So, like, I've always been the type of person to find the joy, find the positivity or whatever. Like there is something in it
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
you can either celebrate, be thankful for, or whatever it is. And so that's what I was doing throughout, which don't get me wrong, that wasn't a bad thing to be doing. But at the same time, I didn't realize that I was, not really acknowledging the grief part of it. And so I've been giving myself now, number one, giving myself the permission to be able to
Mm.
grieve and that
Mhm.
even though he's 4, it's still okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
4, but, I still have and I also have learned, like, I do have triggers sometimes, like,
Mhm.
some days I'm okay to look at people's maternity photos, and some days, I might see one and it just hit me a little, wrong. It's
Yeah.
not about the person, I know that it's
Right.
100% about me. Um,
Yeah.
and I know that that's okay. It's a feeling that, I might still have from time to time. So,
Mhm.
yes, you have to allow yourself first you have to acknowledge it and then allow yourself the opportunity to grieve it, whether that's cry about it or if you need to
Mhm.
talk to somebody about it, whatever it is, however that looks for you.
Mm. Whew. I'm sorry. I needed a moment because that's a lot, and I think a lot of the things you said, like, our audience definitely needs to hear. You hit a lot of great points. I do wanna shift and, like, just bring it up a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah,
because, I got my 2 tissues here.
I got mine
So,
too.
yes,
I got mine
I'm
too.
trying to, like, sneak and do it, but my goodness. And I know Emerson and I love Emerson, and he is a brave champion, and that is all I can say about him. He's a very happy child. Let's talk a little bit about self-care practices. So at Hey Awesome Girl, we talk a lot about pleasure, ease, and abundance. It's actually part of our framework as a company. On your journey, I know that you have given so much to Emerson, so much to work, so much to your husband. Talk to me about your pleasure, ease, and abundance practices for yourself.
Yeah, that's something that I had to regroup on after, like I ain't gonna lie,
All right.
like I ain't gonna lie to you. It had
Right.
fell by the wayside, honey. Like it was like gone. And I realized like, okay, you're not really doing anything for yourself. You're not even like buying nice stuff for yourself. Like you're just not doing like everything I was doing was focused on, trying to be a good wife, trying to be a good mom. Um and and honestly, like, even the mom kinda overtook the wife a little bit. Like, I think for both of us, for Jeff and I, we both kinda, like unspokenly agreed that, like, we kinda took a back like, we knew we were there for each other, but it was like, we're also
Mhm.
in this together, and we have to be here for him. So I
Right.
think, we again, I think some of it is we've just been together so long that we, like some things we just don't have to say, we just know.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think, that was kind of one of those things where it was like, okay, we just gonna take this time. But in all of that, yeah, I did. My self-care just like kind of dwindled. And I realized it, I think just before the pandemic was hitting, honestly, I was
Mm.
starting to like really realize that. And that started to be a focus of like my life goals. Cause, I try to like plan out my year and like think about the things that I, want to
Yeah.
try to achieve and like where I want to spend my time and stuff. And so that was a big area for me. And I think that, what I started to do was one, making sure that I had girl time. So I
Mhm.
have a lot of friends. Most of my friends live in North Carolina because that's where I'm from, like Tivi. I do have a small group of friends here in Florida who have become more like family, and
Mhm.
they know Emerson, love Emerson. And but I started to like just make sure that I was getting that time that I
Mhm.
needed with them. But I also started to do things like just go get a pedicure. Like, why you not going
Okay.
to the pedicure, girl? Like, go get one. So I started back doing, because I think I had like there was a period where I was doing it, but then I just kind of like felt, I was like, I don't have time
Yeah.
or whatever. um, so I started back doing that. I started back going visiting European Wax Center. I was like, I ain't been there in a while. Okay, let me go.
Okay.
Just kind of doing things to like pamper myself that make me feel good. Cause
Mhm.
I
Wax, wax,
haven't
and ready for some action.
exactly. Come on now. So yeah. So I think so those are like just a couple of things. But the other thing is like I used to be a big reader back in the day. Like when I say back in the day, I
Mhm.
mean like back in the day. And so that's something I'm trying to like start doing again because I really love
Mhm.
reading. And I'm like, why don't I do this? Like, it's because
Mm.
I don't have time. It's because I'm doing like, no, I need to like make
Mhm.
time for that. So I've been starting to make time for that. Trying new wines. I love a new wine, honey. The other thing that I did for myself that I like made myself do, I took a wine class. I was like, I want to
Mm.
learn more
Okay.
about it.
Yeah.
And it was literally something I did for myself, not anybody else, just for myself.
Mhm. Mhm.
I took a virtual wine class and loved it. So like I just try to find things that I'm interested in and I try to do that. I am interested in, and you know this, I love dancing. I
Mhm.
don't know if y'all know this, but me and TV used to be on a dance team together, but okay.
It's a
So
popping lot. If Heather can find like some old videos of us, maybe
insert
she'll like
here.
put them on the screen.
That would be awesome. Yes. And actually, like cuz I love dancing and Tiffany knows this. But like so I haven't done it in a long time. So that's something that I'm like I should really try to find a dance class around here. It helps me stay active. It's fun. I
Mhm.
like it. So I've just been like I'm still in that, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like trying to find things to do just for me. But also sometimes it's sitting on the couch with a glass of wine, watching a good show. And that could be The Housewives.
Okay.
Sometimes. Sometimes.
Sometimes that's the self-care or the self-soothing you need because sometimes you got
Right.
to pamper yourself and sometimes you just got to make yourself feel better. And I know
Yeah.
reality TV makes me feel better about my life when I watch it.
100%, girl. 100%. That's the only reason I watch. I
I
do
mean,
I
it's
do
hella
I do
entertaining though.
It is entertaining. I do love, like, some of the women I do really love, but yeah,
Mhm.
but, like, it's either reality TV for me, and when I say reality, usually it is The Housewives, or, like, a feel-good show like Emily in Paris,
Mhm.
like, things like that.
Shout out to that. Oh, and also like go to Paris. I mean, you
Oh,
like
yeah, that part, I
travel
do.
on occasion.
Yeah, so yeah, that I'm glad, I kind of it feels like it's been so long ago, but yeah, I try to like take trips when I can, like meet up with the girls. Like we went to Tivi and I went to Charleston last summer. That was definitely a self-care time for me. I
Yes.
went to Paris last October with a couple of girlfriends. And that was definitely self-care as well. So yes, I do like to travel as a means of self-care, and I recommend it. I especially
Mm.
recommend Paris.
Yes, I still have to get there because the joke is for our audience, we had a Mars in Paris hashtag that we were following while
Yes,
Mars was in Paris. And it was fabulous and also too short. Like, I needed you to be in Paris for longer than you
me
were.
too. Me too. I was like, I felt like we got there, and then the
Had to
next day
come
we
right
left.
back.
Yeah, I was like,
Right.
oh, where did the time go? Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Let's talk about advice you would give to your younger self. Anything come to mind?
I think the first thing that comes to mind for my younger self is let it go because you can't control it, girl. Like that is the
I said
biggest.
your younger self, not talking to me. You at me right now.
Am I
You reading. You said you wanted to start reading some more. I didn't know it was this.
reading? Girl. Yes. I think that's one thing I definitely would say to my younger self. And then the other thing I would say is it don't have to be perfect. Good enough
Mm,
though. It does not have to be perfect. I'm still saying that one to myself, honestly. Yeah. I
yeah,
struggle with that. Yeah.
I do too. And I bet a lot of women in our audience struggle with that too. But we
It's
can
tough.
work on it.
It's
That's one
tough.
thing we
Yeah.
can work on. Well, I have
Absolutely.
definitely enjoyed this conversation. I do want to end with people learning more about where they can find out more about you, your journey. I know you have a blog. Do you want to talk about that for folks and where they can find you?
Yes. Yeah, so my blog is called Medical Mommy, and it's something that I just started just for me. I felt like I needed a little bit of an outlet to be able to like just really get everything that was, happening and going on inside of me. I just needed to get it out there. And then
Mm.
if people read it and got something from it, awesome. And so, that was kind of the purpose behind it. It's called Medical Mommy, and it's medicalmommyblog.com. So if you guys want to check it out. But yeah, it just kind of chronicles like us going through the journey and some of the highs and lows and the medical jargon as well.
You're going to learn something reading that, and you will be inspired as well.
I
For
hope
sure.
so. I hope so.
For sure. Well, thank you so much, Mars, for joining me on Hey Awesome Girl with Tivi Jones. It has been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, y'all. So, what did you think about that episode? I know we talked about a lot of really deep things. Myself, as someone who was born 3 months premature, I know my mom dealt with some of the things that Mars dealt with, not all of them. But I'm really curious to everyone who is watching and listening, what has been your experience navigating grief that isn't related to someone's death? Maybe it's a change in your career, a change in a relationship, expectations that didn't come true. Please consider sharing those in the comments. If you like this episode, please share it with your community. If you know someone who's the parent of a micro-preemie, who's the parent of a child that's premature in the NICU, and you think that this story might inspire them, might encourage them to help them feel like they are not alone. Of course, you can find Mars at medicalmommyblog.com. We'll have all of her information in the comments, and you can find us at heyawesomegirl.com. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join us next time. So it's me again, just jumping back on to share a special resource with you. So I know I talk a lot about our pleasure, ease, and abundance framework that we use at Hey Awesome Girl, but maybe you aren't quite sure what that means and how you can incorporate that into your life. Well, we have a free resource for you that can help with that. It's our Pleasure, Ease, and Abundance playbook. In this playbook, I outline the 9 elements of pleasure, ease, and abundance you need to consider to help you create a life that is fun, fabulous, and free. I walk you through journal prompts, I share resources, and give you some actionable steps you can take to get you further away from stress, exhaustion, and being broke. To download this free playbook, go to heyawesomegirl.com/framework, enter your email address, and we'll send it right over to you. That's heyawesomegirl.com/framework to download your free playbook today.